Hi, volleyball fans, and welcome back to Volley Talk, the podcast created for volleyball lovers who want to dig deep into what is going on in NCAA and international volleyball. I'm your host, Sarah Pavin. I'm an Olympian, beach volleyball world champion, former Nebraska Cornhusker, and longtime pro, both indoor and on the beach.
And I'm Adam Schultz, former indoor player, international volleyball coach, and the show's resident stat guy.
We had week 2 of the men's VNL competition. I don't know if I'm crazy, but I felt like Chicago was completely stacked and Belgrade was not.
There definitely are locations that have tougher pools from week to week, and we'll see that again next week too.
Yeah, like looking at some of the matches and stuff, I was like, dang, this seems a little unbalanced, but maybe I'm crazy here. I don't know. We had a few teams differentiate themselves, and then again, it's like a chunk of 3 at the top, a chunk of 4 at the bottom, and then literally open season for the rest. So things are going to be wild in week 3. And I think with the men's competition, as we spoke about last week, that's always a guarantee.
The race for making the playoffs is an absolute hot mess in the best way.
You know we love it. So we're excited to discuss all things men's VNL week 2 with you. So let's get started. This might be the shortest weekly highlights in Volley Talk history, everybody, okay? There's not a lot happening. I'm pretty sure Love has finished their signings for season 2. We don't have any, note-taking on coaches' commentary. Things are pretty slow for the most part, other than, we had like some continental competitions for youth and things like that. So
no major league news?
Shockingly, no Major League Volleyball news. I know you were waiting with like a held breath on that. But no. So shortest weekly highlights ever. The only thing I have for you this week is Golden League and Silver League were happening in Europe. And for women, the men's competition finishes next week. So Ukraine won the Golden League and Switzerland won the Silver League. So there's that.
And while that doesn't guarantee you a spot in VNL next year, winning the Golden League will give Ukraine a good number of points to help them up the ranking. So we'll see what ends up happening with the relegation on the women's side and who's next in line.
It's up in the air. But that's all I got for you. Done and dusted. Spick and span. Okay, that's it. Let's get into the week 2 VNL recap, shall we?
There were a lot of very good matches.
Yes.
And as the week comes to an end, Brazil is at the top with 7 wins.
By themselves. Solo.
And they did not pull any punches with their roster this week. They came to give themselves a chance to win, and they did. They played Canada, China, Poland, and Italy, and I believe they went 4-0.
They went 4-0. So they're solo at the top. Poland is in second. Italy's in third. Both teams have 6 wins. So Brazil, Poland, and Italy. And again, the gaps we're talking about here are not large, but they are the 3 that are kind of at the top. Japan, France, Ukraine, Argentina all have 5 wins. So this is what we're saying. Like, things are up in the air here.
And then there's a ton of teams. Almost all of the other teams have 4 points except for...
Wins.
4 wins, except for the bottom 4, 5 teams. Canada's got 3.
So we've got everybody basically sitting at 4 and 5 wins. We've got Serbia at the bottom of the ranks. They have 1 win. Netherlands have a win. But Netherlands has 4 points to Serbia's 3. So those 2 are at the very, very bottom. China and Turkey both have 2 wins. So those teams are kind of wrapping up the bottom of the ranks. we'll get into all the details and the messiness and relegation and stuff later, but I think it's fair to say that this has been a tough VNL outing for Serbia across the board, men and women.
We are potentially looking at a double relegation for Serbia. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of volleyball, where one country, both their teams get relegated.
No, like when in a million years would anybody have ever thought that both Serbians men and women's team would be at the bottom?
No, the odds were 1,000,000 to 1. Like it's wild.
It's been a rough summer.
Yeah, not
guys. Great. So that is where we stand. Again, everything is up in the air. Like even Brazil at the top with 7 wins, they're not safe because there's literally 11 teams that are like right behind them. But we got our chunk as suspected. Well, maybe Brazil's not suspected because we did get a question about this that I want to address. Brazil's at the top. Poland, Italy, I think that's fair. We expected them to be up there. And then our 4 at the bottom. But I want to address this because we're talking about Brazil. Somebody wrote in and they were saying that they would love our opinion on the rebuilding of the Brazilian men's team. So they were obviously dominant in the 2000s. They went into a straight rebuild and were very successful in the 2010s. Obviously, they won gold in Rio in 2016. But we've seen Serginho, Wallacey, Bruninho, Leal, Lucan. They are all gone. And the last 3 I mentioned, obviously, right after the Paris Olympics. So this person said, as a fan, I struggle to come to terms with the lack of competitiveness of the team compared to what they used to be and seeing my idols retire. So I'd like your view on the current situation and if you believe that we can actually compete for gold during this Olympic cycle.
I mean, there's a lot there. And obviously, the players who retired after Paris, I mean, they were legends in Brazil for a decade.
I mean, Brazil has been fortunate on both the men's and women's side to have a very constant, continuous flow of just top level athletes. So it is definitely a luxury that they have had. But based on what I saw this week, like,
I'm not worried.
They can hang. Like, they're right there.
And the thing is, you have to give the new generation a chance to become stars. And it just so happens your cycles run differently from other countries. Like USA is in a bit of a rebuild, right? And I thought, watching Cooper Robinson, he's going to be very good. And then you look at some of the Brazilian players, Bergman is going to be very good. Like that core that they have playing right now in VNL does not look out of place. I mean, they just went 4-0.
Italy showed up. Italy played Brazil with a solid roster.
Yeah. That was one.
And Brazil beat them.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite matches this week. That and the France and Japan game.
We'll get into that in a second. Adam's just getting crazy.
But I don't think you have anything to worry about if you're a Brazilian fan. They're going to be competitive, with Bernardinho at the helm. He is great at developing players.
Bernardinho always comes back in a pinch, everybody.
Yeah.
He's like, the program is kind of faltering a little bit. Time for me to step in and right the ship here, okay?
Yeah, I mean, am I going to sit here and say they're going to win? No. But
I think it's realistic that they could be in the conversation.
100%. I don't think they're going anywhere. The league is so good. The number of players they have coming through their system, if some of these kids don't pan out this cycle, there'll be somebody chomping at the bit to take their place next cycle. There's just too much talent there. Are you going to see a core of Bruno, Leal, Wallacey?
Lucas, you're not going to, it's hard. That's like a generational, it's going to be tough to see that kind of group again. But
you never.
Lucarelli's still playing. He'll be back eventually.
Yeah, and we might be looking after LA and going, man, Bergman is generational. He might.
I think Bergman is going to be so good. He's he's so young. I think he's going to be so good. I think this person who wrote in was talking about Allen and Darlan.
Played well.
And how they're inconsistent. I personally thought that Allen was quite good.
Yeah, I thought he was very good as well. And the thing about the
Darlan is a little bit more of a wild card to me. He's a little more of a risk taker.
But go back and watch Wallacey play when he was 21, 22, 23. Like, I was in the league at that time with the Brazilian team. I watched him play. It was the same thing. Like, he had good matches. He had bad matches. You get more consistent as you get experience. It's not fair to compare these young players to the stars in their peak. You need to give them a chance to get there. And I think they can.
And I think that's the beauty of sport too, is that like as fans, sometimes you get really spoiled by having certain generations commit to playing for a long time when they are so good.
Yeah.
And this is just one of those like little lulls, but I think they're going to come out of it. And like, I think that they were in the toughest kind of location this week and they were outstanding.
Yeah.
So just wanted to address that.
I mean, as a Brazilian, I can see how you're looking at those people retiring going, oh man, we're in trouble. As an outside observer, you look at that team and go, man, they got a lot of young talent.
Okay, we've got a few interesting storylines this week that we wanted to touch on. First of all, what was your favorite match this week?
I have a hard time picking between, and I mentioned this already, the Brazil-Italy match, which was, hey, here are probably our better rosters, and we're in a shootout. It was so entertaining. The intensity was high. They were hitting the snot out of the ball. It was... Oh, man, it was so much fun. I really enjoyed that match. And I also loved the Japan-France match. And I know I said this last week, but Klevno right now is just my most favorite player to watch.
I've never seen Adam have such a man crush, ever.
He plays with a swagger that's fun to watch. You see him hit the hands of blockers who are massive, of blockers who are smaller. There was a play in the Japan match where he dug a ball with his foot. He ended up on the ground out of the rally and then came back and made a solo dive angle block on the Japanese right side who was playing unbelievable. Like, he's just...
If any of you watch Haikyuu, it was literally a Haikyuu-esque play and like a Hinata approach block from the bench. It
was wild. And then on defense, he's just so nonchalant and always in the right place. He's so much fun to watch.
Wow. Adam is clearly passionate about this man, as you can tell.
I mean, he's fun to watch.
Those were two very interesting matches to watch. And I think, not like for different reasons, but I think there was a very interesting contrast in these matches. I think, as Adam said, the Brazil-Italy match, you saw them play the strongest rosters that they could. And so they were like, you know what? We saved up for this match. Here we go. Let's see what you got.
The match had meaning for both teams. It was a bit of a measuring stick match, I think. You know, both teams wanted to win. They came to play. It got a little chippy. There were some stare downs. It was fun.
There were some swings of points too. Yeah. Like, you know, Italy having set point at one time, being up 24-21, Brazil coming back. Like, there were these very meaningful like runs of points, and overall I would say like a very high level fun match. But to contrast that, it was like Japan and France, we all know that they didn't have their big guns there. So it was like Brazil, Italy, starting lineups against each other. Japan, France, second line against each other. I mean, obviously, for Klevno, we're there for France, similar to week one. But Brizard made an appearance when they needed him to. Chinyeze was there, didn't play.
Yeah.
But, like, Japan was missing some of their superstars. So Japan looked real bad for a while, and I thought that they were going to get slapped in 4.
Yeah.
And then set 5, France could not hit a serve to save their lives.
Well, they couldn't. I mean, they missed a ton of serves all match.
Ton of serves.
And watching the Japanese men play, they need to be able to run the pipe. When the pipe wasn't an option for them, France was all over them defensively. And so, France was obviously hitting their serve aggressively because they were missing so much. But when that pipe disappeared, I thought they struggled. The right side for Japan, Miyaura, I think I probably butchered that pronouncement, but I thought he played really, really well. He was very aggressive and scored points for them, which they needed. So it was, and the styles are obviously different between France and Japan.
If you didn't get a chance to watch those matches, head back and watch them. Both very entertaining in their own right, albeit different. Like Japan and France can still level up a bit. Brazil, Italy was great. So I think another interesting storyline from this week was injuries.
Oh man, you hate to see that. And they play the slow-mos over and over again.
I cover my eyes. Like every time a player gets injured, I cover my eyes because seeing an ankle go or seeing a knee twist or a hyperextension or you name it, it makes me sick. So I always close my eyes and I tell Adam to let me know what happened.
I have rolled my ankles very badly playing volleyball, and watching some of those things happen just brings me right back to that moment. I think I limp afterwards for a little while.
Well, Adam just stares at it and I'm just like, I literally can't. But probably, okay, Eric Shoji went down in match 1.
And then came right back.
Only made his return for their 4th match.
So I'm assuming he's okay. Like he played.
Obviously,
he played pretty well in that match.
That was like, I'm like, okay, they can't.
No,
that's a big loss if they lose him. But like, I mean, D'Agostino does a good job for USA also, but he's not
Shoji.
So
it was good to see him back and playing, and hopefully it wasn't like a grunted out that he's okay.
I'm willing to bet that they wouldn't have made him grunted out if he, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth it.
Fair.
With like world champs at the end of the season and stuff,
But they're on the cusp of making it, not making it either.
I
so
know. So I was really worried about it for a few days, and then like he came back to play against Italy, so I'm like, okay, that's a good sign. But another one of their players, the middle blocker Holdaway, is also injured.
Yeah, no timeline on him. I think it was his knee or lower body at least, but I don't know.
Or NHL here.
Yeah,
lower body injury.
But
Take your pick.
Yeah, he didn't come back, so kind of we'll see if he's on the roster for week 3 or not.
He did a good job. Like he wasn't on the roster for week 1, or he didn't play at least. Came off the bench for the first match this week. Did a great job. So he was starting, and then obviously went down. We also saw the same thing happen with an Iranian player, a Turkish player, and
probably the biggest injury for their team.
Moni Nikolov went down in the 3rd match for Bulgaria.
And they stunk after he was gone.
They were having a great week.
Yeah.
They were beating good teams. They crushed Japan. They were like rolling. And then Moni went down.
His brother could not get it together after that.
No, he like looked unwell.
Yeah. And the other setter just couldn't connect with the hitter. Like he's the heart and soul of that team, I think. Whether they all see him as a younger brother or whether they actually, and obviously he's a very good setter. But yeah, the team could not pull it back together after he was injured.
Yeah, so they lost their last 2 matches, which is unfortunate because they were doing really well. But word is he should be back in a couple weeks. So maybe we'll see him in week 3. Maybe they'll try to push to make the final without him and then bring him back for the final. But
I mean, lucky for him, there's an extra week.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's got more time to recover. And they're on the cusp. I'm not sure they qualify without him, but we'll see what happens.
So yes, injuries all over the place this week. It was not fun. I know we probably missed some, but those are the ones that we saw. So hopefully everybody's okay and they'll be back soon. Who were your biggest climbers and your biggest downfalls this week?
I thought Ukraine had a very good week. We'll get to this later, but I have them making the playoffs. And I think they're playing incredibly well right now. So they were probably the biggest surprise for me.
Okay, I had quite the list. So I will. Ukraine was on my list, but since he said it, I won't. So I will say Brazil, Cuba, Argentina. I think Cuba had a great week.
I loved watching Cuba play. The absolute swagger that those guys have on the court it's just so much fun to watch. I watched them play Netherlands, and the Dutch boys are like, they're tall and they're a little lanky and they're very proper, and Cuba was just swaggering.
They got their
I don't
gold
have
chains.
another way to say it. They were swaggering around the court, and you could see it getting under the Dutch's skin, and they were kind of trying to chirp back or stare them down,
No,
and you just
don't do
can't.
it.
You can't do
You
that
can't try.
against Cuba. They're just big and physical, and quite frankly, they're just cooler than you. That's just the way that they operate, and they were so much fun to watch.
I had a lot of fun watching them. I was happy to see them have some success. They went 3 for 4. You know what? Why don't I just tell you my last team too? Germany.
Oh, yeah.
The reason I put Germany on my climbers list was because last week, in week 1, they got 1 win, but they lost every single other match in 5. This week, they got 3 wins, which I think is huge.
Yeah.
Argentina got 3 wins, pushing them like into a spot to fight for final 8. And then the reason I put Brazil on my climbers list was because they had 3 wins. They were near the top in week 1, but and I'll say it again, I've said it twice already today, they were in the toughest group, in my opinion, and they went 4-0. And for me, that made an impression. And watching them play, I was impressed. So that's why I put them on the biggest climbers list.
I mean, I think all of your justifications are correct. I didn't realize we could pick half the league for the climbers. I picked one, but it is what it is.
Okay, if I had to pick, I would probably say Brazil and Ukraine. Ukraine, like 3 wins. First VNL.
Yep.
And they're showing up.
Yep.
Okay. Who are your biggest downfalls?
I had 2. Slovenia, I don't know what happened to them this week. They struggled. And I was expecting a little more out of Canada, to be honest.
Canada went from 6 to 14. That's serious.
Yeah.
Slovenia went from what? They were like 3 or 4 last week, and they are down to like 11 or something.
Yeah, I think they're out of the picture.
Slovenia and Canada, they were 100% on my list.
Yeah, fair enough. I was expecting Canada to be able to close out on a few more matches. I thought they had a decent showing in week 1. They were making plays. They were more disciplined than I thought they were going to be coming into the week. I figured that having a better first week, and maybe it was just because they were at home, that gave them a little extra boost. But they started from a place that I thought they would be lower than. So they exceeded my expectations in week 1, and I wanted to see them build off of that, but it didn't change. If anything, I thought the discipline was less. I don't think they passed as well. They were making mistakes kind of in groups, and I don't know if that's, the thing is, they're not inexperienced. You needed to be able to win those games, to be more competitive. I didn't see them build off what they accomplished in Quebec.
Yeah. And against the US, I was like, this is
But that should
awful.
That should have been a winnable match. Right? Like,
should have been, and then they got blanked, and then
Yeah.
you go and take Poland to 5. Like, the inconsistency was drastic to me.
well, and you have to pick your places. And this is, I don't know if pet peeve is the wrong word, but you can't come in against an opponent that you are probably equal to. Realistically, those 2 teams, you probably look at that and go, okay, that game could go either way, and you don't show up in that match. And then against a team you're not supposed to beat, then you show up and play really well. Like, it comes back to
granted, if they're ever going to beat Poland, it was now, because Poland did not have all their guys there.
Yeah, and I get that, but it's still Poland.
Yeah.
Like, on paper, you're not supposed to win that match. And this is the thing I think you see with Canada, both on the men's and women's side, is dealing with that expectation of teams that you should beat, a la maybe Netherlands in the women's going into the Olympics. And here, the same thing. Like, they need to be able to put that same performance on the floor regardless of who they're playing and regardless of whether they should or shouldn't win. And it was disappointing.
Yeah. Very, very inconsistent performance from game to game, match to match. Like, it was not good, and they have completely taken themselves out of it, I think.
I mean, their pool next week is not very strong. They could get 3 wins, but it's still only going to put them at 6. I don't have them making the playoffs.
And then Slovenia, in all transparency, I didn't see their matches this week, but they didn't do so hot.
Well, especially after the start that they had. You thought that they were going to come out, and they were playing so well. They beat good teams. I didn't have a chance to watch them this week. I wonder if their young setter struggled, playing back-to-back, but it was not the results I was expecting from them, given how they played in the first week. So the interesting thing about the VNL is that everybody's got a different strategy. We saw Brazil and Italy field full rosters. We saw France and Japan have secondary rosters. But everybody's goal is generally to try and make the playoffs so you can play good volleyball kind of at the end. So
if you thought last week was wild with Adam's number crunching probabilities, who's playing who, let's watch out for this. This one is going to be even worse, okay? Because the men are crazy.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, probably 13, maybe 12 teams could potentially make the playoffs. I think if we look at this realistically, and I've kind of forecasted and looked at the pools for next week, I'm going to go over the pools for next week quickly, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts, and then we'll talk about relegation and who might.
Okay, so you're going to go through
where are we playing?
Where are we playing, and then we're going to do predictions of who will make the final 8.
Correct.
Followed by predictions of who will be relegated.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we look at Poland, so Pool 1 is in Poland, it has China, France, Bulgaria, Cuba, Iran, and Poland. So China's in the relegation race. Poland and France are going to be okay going into the playoffs.
France is kind of in that chunk, though.
France has 5 wins. Okay?
I feel like no one is safe. I think Brazil is safe.
Nobody is safe, but France is playing Poland, China, Cuba, and Iran. So, I mean, Cuba's always roll the dice, and if all of their players are great and they're passing well,
100% is roll the dice.
But France can also bring their starting players, and they'll probably be okay.
So France, Poland, tough one, but I think France could beat.
France
likely going to beat the other two. And Cuba, if Cuba can pass, that's the thing. If Cuba can pass, they can beat anybody. They're just so physical. But if they can't pass, they're a train wreck.
I have France winning 3 of 4 matches in that pool play.
So they'll come out with 8.
So they'll come out. And then you have Bulgaria, Cuba, and Iran all have 4. So remember that. Okay? Second pool is in Slovenia. So we have Ukraine, Netherlands, Serbia, Italy, Canada, Slovenia. Okay? This is the battle for relegation. Okay? So Ukraine, I believe, is going to come out and make the playoffs. They have 5 points currently. They have Canada, Netherlands, and Serbia in their pool. I think they win all of those matches, and they end up with 8 wins going in. Okay, I don't see them beating Italy, but Serbia is winless. Or Serbia has 1 win. Netherlands has 1 win. Canada has 3 wins.
But Canada's
not playing well, and I don't see any of those 3 rosters being particularly stronger next week. Like, I don't think Serbia, Netherlands,
yeah.
or Canada can make many changes. So unless Ukraine crumbles under the being their first VNL, of having a chance to win, or, you know, all of those things, I see them coming out with 8 points. And then you have the battle for relegation with this pool, because you have Netherlands and Serbia. They both have 1 win currently. And what I think is going to happen...
Are they playing each other?
They are not playing each other. No. So Netherlands has Ukraine, Slovenia, Canada, and Italy. They're going to lose to Ukraine, Slovenia, and Italy, I would say. The match to be relegated, in my opinion, is going to come down to Canada.
Canada is just, and men and women, they're just like, hello, play us if you don't
Well,
want to get relegated.
Both Netherlands and Serbia play Canada. So whoever can beat Canada will probably stay in. Because I don't think they're going to win. Who do you think
has a better chance of beating Canada? I think I have an idea.
I would say the Netherlands.
Dang, that's what I thought too.
Serbia just doesn't...
Serbia is a dumpster fire, this VNL.
Yeah. And I think from a stylistic standpoint, I think Netherlands is...
I think Netherlands' size is going to cause some issues.
Yeah, I agree. So, you know, and then in that pool, Canada's going to be in the middle. They're not going to get relegated, but they're not going to make it out. And then you have Italy, who's going to come out. They have 6 wins. They play Netherlands, Slovenia, Ukraine, Serbia. Like, they're going to come out with probably 10 wins. They're going to win at least
2 of those.
Yeah. I don't see them losing one of those matches. I think they're going to finish at the top of the pile. And then Slovenia, they have 4 wins. They play Canada, Netherlands, Italy, and Serbia. So they could come out with 7.
They could bounce back from week 2 and get 3 wins.
But I also could see them losing to Canada.
Yeah, like randomly.
So, you know, we'll see. I don't know what kind of a boost they'll get from playing at home. But again, that's a roster that's not going to get much better. Like, they've fielded their team. And I think a lot of it will come down to how do their young guys play. So that part is interesting. And then we get to, in my opinion, the most interesting pool. So this one is in Japan. So Argentina, Brazil, Turkiye, USA, Germany, Japan.
Brazil's being thrown into some tough.
Yeah, but they got good matchups in this one. Okay. So Brazil currently has 7 wins. They play Japan, and then they play Argentina, Turkiye, and Germany. So
I think Japan and Argentina could be like challenging matches. I think they can handle Turkiye and Germany.
I think Brazil wins 3 or 4 of that matches. 3 of 4 of those matches.
Okay.
I have full expectations of Japan showing up with their studs.
Japan can do the level up.
Yeah. So we're going to see a different Japan.
Well, I would assume.
As long as everybody's healthy. And I don't, you know, we don't have spies, you know, checking out the injury reports. Well, I don't have spies. Sarah might have a network, but I don't. So
hit me up on Instagram.
Yeah. I'm expecting that Japan is going to want to show up and show out at home.
Well, what are the teams that you think even period can still level up? In my opinion, it's Japan, France, and Poland can still level up.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
So those teams can bring more players. So then the other 4 teams all have a shot to make the playoffs. So you have Argentina with 5 wins. You have Japan with 5 wins. You have Germany with 4 wins, and you have USA with 4 wins. So here's my prediction of the top down. So I think Brazil and Italy.
Wait, who is USA playing this week?
So USA plays Turkiye, Argentina, Germany, and Japan. So I don't think they're going to beat Japan, but I think they'll struggle with Argentina. I think that's the match to get in. Yeah, that could go either way for me. That'll be really challenging. I think that's the match to get in. So in my estimate, okay, I have the following teams as locks to make the playoffs. Brazil and Italy, I think, are going to end with 10 wins. Okay? I think that Poland and France are going to finish 3-4 with 9
So you think
wins.
Brazil's going to go, or Italy's going to go 4-0?
I think Italy's going to go 4-0. Okay, so there's 4. I think Japan and Ukraine are going to be 5-6 with 8 wins.
So you hold on. I need to break this down a little slower.
Go ahead.
You think Italy's going 4-0. You think France is going 4-0.
Yes. I think France will
You
beat
think
Poland.
France is beating Poland?
I do.
Okay. Wow. In Poland?
I do. I think
that's bold.
I think France is going to bring their guns and play.
Yeah, but I also think that Poland can level up more than France can.
Well, okay. Well, fair enough. I mean, it's going to be a great match. It's going to be a great match.
So Italy, Brazil at the top.
Yeah.
Then you have Poland and France, Japan, Ukraine, which is crazy. Ukraine is like, hey, it's our first VNL. Let's do this.
Welcome to the party. So, and again, those ones, I think those teams are going to be in. Could Poland beat France?
So there's 2 spots 100%. Left.
You know, whatever.
Based on Adam's predictions, there's 2 spots left.
Making the playoffs is the primary one. I know I'm going to get hate from the Polish fans. It's fine. You're
going to get there. You're going to get there.
Those teams, I think, are safe. Okay. So that leaves us with a combination of these teams: Argentina, Germany, Cuba, Iran, Bulgaria, USA, who are all on the cusp, right?
In the women's, we have like 3 to 4 teams on the cusp.
No.
In the men's, half the field.
But most of those, again, are in 2 pools. So if you look at it, Argentina, Germany, and USA are all in the same pool. Okay, they are all traveling to Japan. So not only are you playing, but you're going across the world, and you have to show up. USA is...
That's a tough trip from Argentina.
It's a tough trip from the USA, too.
It's worse from Argentina.
Fair enough. So, you know, Argentina probably not going to beat Brazil or Japan. Again, it's definitely possible. I'm just saying, you know, if both teams show up, if Brazil travels with their team, so you have USA, you'll probably beat Turkey. So USA comes down to that win. Germany, Japan, Turkiye, USA, Brazil. Again, probably not going to be Japan and Brazil, but you have Turkiye, you have USA, right? So all of those matches, it's whoever comes out between that group.
So Germany, USA, Argentina, they need to beat each other, and then they need to try to get an unpredicted win against Brazil or Japan.
Correct. And they all play Turkiye. So if one of them drops
Turkey just ruins everybody's 100%. Dreams, and they're like, surprise, here we are.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same thing. You have Bulgaria, Cuba, and Iran all in the same pool, all with 4 wins. But Iran plays Poland, China, France, Bulgaria. Cuba plays China, Bulgaria, Poland, France. Like, it's an absolute disaster. For me, Bulgaria, if Moni is better and can play, I think they get in. If he's not, I don't think they get in. So I don't even know what the prediction of these last 2 spots are.
So basically, watch every single venue, every single game.
No, the other pool in Slovenia, I don't think is going to be of much
unless
consequence.
you want to see the relegation matches, then watch the Slovenian group.
So that's the relegation, because I don't have. At the bottom, you have Serbia and Netherlands both with 1 win, and we talked about them playing Canada. That's feasibly the only match they can win, I think. And then I don't think China or Turkiye is going to win a match.
China
next
was
week.
better than I expected them to be. Just saying.
I'm totally on board with that sentiment. I think that they've played great, but they play France, Iran, Bulgaria, and Cuba.
They're not going to beat France, I don't think. But I think they could legit win. If they serve well, they can beat any of those other 3 teams. Oh! Okay. You guys heard it here first. It's going to be a mess.
What?
For those last 2 spots. But let's see if Adam is right in his top 6 with Brazil, Italy, Poland, France,
Japan, Ukraine.
Let's see. Write that down. Who do you think is okay? So that's your prediction for getting in.
Yeah.
What are you thinking for relegation?
I think Serbia is going to be relegated.
Because we think that Netherlands is going to beat Canada and Serbia is not.
Yeah. I haven't looked at the tie break. Well, Netherlands has more points than Serbia too. So if they both lose, if they both lose and it's not in 5, then Serbia goes home.
Serbia, what is happening?
Yeah, I don't know.
Dang.
So
do you think Serbia? You don't think Serbia's going to win a game this week, next week?
I think it's tough. They play Italy, Ukraine, and Slovenia in Slovenia. I mean, we'll see what happens there. And then they play Canada.
Here we are. We're like Ukraine fans now. We're like, Ukraine can take on anybody. They're going to win.
They're just playing well. They're just playing well. And I guess if that changes, I mean, obviously anybody can lose. Like, they don't have the same experience or whatever else, but they are.
I kind of hate, though, that Serbia and Netherlands are not playing each other. I feel like it needs to come down to that, you guys.
So
Wait, did they play each other in week 1? They were in the same place in week 1. They were in the same group again in week 1, and they didn't even play each other.
No.
This is wild.
Yeah. So my prediction for 7th is if Moni comes and he's healthy, I think Bulgaria makes it in. If he doesn't, I don't think they make it. And I have probably Argentina making it, with Cuba as my dark horse. Germany is also.
So you think
right
USA's out?
I think that USA is going to be in tough. I think the lack of experience is going to hurt them down the stretch.
Well, let's see what happens. Week 3, always a mess. I love it.
Week 3 for both men and women's is going to be awesome. If you love seeing, having something on the line, pressure, who's going to deal with who, I mean, it's
but the men's is even more unpredictable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be insane. Let us know what you think of Adam's number crunching predictions. Okay, let's get into our listener questions. Question 1. Do you think the Italian men made a mistake making Micheletto an outside hitter? For those of you who want a refresher, Micheletto is very big. He is left-handed. This person was basically like, I think he would be an OP opposite because he's huge, he's left-handed, blah, blah, blah. So what do you think? Do you think they made a mistake?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. They have another lefty who's very good, currently playing on the opposite.
Yes.
Right. So, first and foremost, you want to put your best players on the floor. So if both of those guys are better than other guys, you want to find a way to do that. Second of all, it's way easier to go from a left side to the right side, especially if you're left-handed, than it is to go the other direction. So if he can play that position specifically and he can pass, it gives you more options. So training him as an outside hitter and having the ability and knowing you can move him back and forth and have potentially a passing right side, I think having all those options given his skill set makes a ton of sense. It's not like he struggles to hit on the left side.
No, he's outstanding. And A, he's huge. B, his passing is not bad. Like he can handle himself.
It also gives you a legitimate block against other teams' right sides, which not a lot of teams have. The flexibility to have a player like that on the left side, I think makes a lot of sense. You wouldn't even think about this if he was right-handed.
Oh, 100%. I'm just like, okay, clearly the combination of having him and Romanov on the court at the same time is part of their combination of like the best 6. Like if there was a left side who was better than Micheletto, yeah, move him to the right, 100%. But like I feel like, and lefty left sides, if they can make it work. I have not seen many lefty left sides like that are good. That can like make it work. It's very rare. But he's working with one of the best setters in the world who can put him in a good position. Although Ginelli did struggle to set him a couple times in that Brazil match. They got a little tight, a little inside. He was in trouble. He's making it work.
I don't have a problem with it. The other thing to think about too is it's very unusual to have a left-handed outside. So from a block standpoint on the opposing team, if you're not used to the lineup and it's something you don't see all the time, it can create some confusion in that. So there's a lot of pros to it, in my opinion. And I mean, you're blessed with a plethora of left-handed players. So, I mean, keep them on the court.
Mess everybody up.
And you can always make adjustments. Like, we're in year 1 of the cycle. So I think it's smart.
And I'm never opposed to a passing right side situation, but you have to think, obviously, Michieletto is a much better left side attacker than Romanov is. If those two are two people you want on the court, Michieletto's probably just way better at hitting on the left than he is. So they're like, okay.
Yeah. Good question, though.
Question 2. Why is Catherine Plummer not in VNL? Where is she? Do you think she'll still play for an Olympic spot?
I believe her father passed away this past year.
Like, recently. I heard she left Izazibashi early because he passed away, like, at the end of the season. So it is quite recent.
So I believe she's going through that and dealing with it, and it's never easy. And, you know, if you have the luxury of being able to spend that time with family and to do that, then, you know, you take it. And I definitely think she'll be in an Olympic spot. She'll be playing for the team. She's playing overseas. She's doing all the right things to be on track to play for them.
I don't know if an injury is mixed in with all of those personal circumstances, but regardless if an injury is involved or not, like, yeah, life is short. So
yeah, so she's taking
some
that time
to spend.
Yeah. And I believe
family.
she has a contract already for next year, and she's set up. So you will see her. We might even see her at Worlds.
Question 3: which U.S. women do you think are going to be ousted for Women's Week 3?
I was waiting for this question.
Okay. Do you want me to go through the players that were on Week 2 to give you a refresh?
I think I remember most of the players who were there. Sarah's making that face because I sometimes struggle with names and rosters.
And just memory.
written down in front of me. I think most important to this question is who's available and coming this week. Right? So it's not just about kicking people off who haven't played well enough to be there. It's who are you replacing them with. So why don't we go through that list, and then we'll make the substitutions from there.
Well, I was going to go position by position and just see if we had any thoughts. Okay, so the setters from Week 2 were Sage and Ella Mae Powell, and Rachel Fairbanks was the alternate.
You're not going to change that unless Poulter's actually going to come and play. So
I think Powell needs to be left home.
That's who I would leave at home.
Bring anybody else. I'm sorry, but if Jenna Gray is healthy, if Poulter's healthy, that should be a swap for me. Yeah,
I like traveling Fairbanks because I think you're getting her travel experience and understanding what's going on.
Sage, honestly, you guys know I'm not a fan from love, but like she has played much better than in Week 2, she played much better than I expected. So
Week 2, the offense got faster and more international style. Her decision making was better. Her setting wasn't always consistent, but it was better.
But I would leave Powell home and I'd bring one of the other ones.
Yeah, I would make the same.
So in the middle, they had Ijid, McCage, Retke, and Butler.
I'm not sure I would make any changes there.
I mean, the Asia O'Neal fans probably want to see her there, but I think the middle switches they made from Week 1 to 2 were good.
Dana's going to play. She was good.
Yeah.
And then you're basically looking at Ijid and Obagu.
Well, Ogbagu's not on the roster, but Butler.
Sorry, that's who I meant.
Hence the names.
Yeah,
sure.
There we go.
So right side, they ended up using Maddie Skinner on the right, so they had 3 right sides there in Lednicki, Babcock, and Skinner.
Again, I said this before. Lednicki is fine. I don't think she's played poorly. I also don't think she's won the many matches. I think Skinner was probably their best point scorer in Week 2. So I think you keep her there. I think you keep bringing Babcock because she's super young and she has a ton of upside.
And we're not saying Lednicki's not young. She's also young, but
Lednicki just doesn't have the same upside to me as Babcock does currently. You know, that might change year to year.
Her block positioning was not good. Like she was steady offensively. She wasn't a superstar. She wasn't killing them. She was steady, but I think she's a blocking liability and a defensive liability.
You didn't really notice her. That was my issue. Like, not good or bad, she was just kind of on the court when she played. So I think if you're looking at the future, which I think they're doing, you bring Skinner, who's going to play every match, and Babcock, who's going to come in for the double sub.
And if they're doing that, I think the two liberos are going to stay the same with Rodriguez and Hens.
Yeah.
But I think they had too many opposites last time, so I think they're going to have to bring another left side. So the three left sides that they ended up using bringing were Ronnie Jones-Perry, Eggleston, and Franklin. Leave Ronnie Jones-Perry home.
Yeah, you need to. I mean, is Avery Skinner coming? Is she back from her wedding or wherever she
Well,
was?
leave Ronnie Jones-Perry home. Even if you keep Eggleston and Franklin, you have two more that you can bring. Let's bring a combination, two of Lanier, Skinner, Adams.
You bring Skinner and whoever has passed the best at practice for the past 2 weeks, because you're going to need to pass the ball, period.
So all that being said, who do we think is going to be ousted or think should be ousted? Powell, Lednicki, Ronnie Jones-Perry.
Yeah.
Okay, last question of the day. Who is your dream USA coach?
Oh, my gosh. This question, I'm assuming we're talking for the women.
Yeah.
Can we clone Karch? So here's the thing. There's a couple things at play here. One is I think that the U.S. always wants to hire a U.S. person for their national team, which
I think that's every country's dream. How realistic it is.
I mean, you have a lot of volleyball knowledge and skill in the U.S. It should be realistic. So, as somebody pointed out, that I think Guidetti applied for the USA job. He's in Canada now, and he obviously is a very qualified coach. The problem on the women's side internationally is that there are so many lucrative college jobs on the women's side that you make way more money and you're at home coaching college women's in the U.S. than going overseas and starting out as a third assistant and then working your way up to a second assistant and then, maybe getting a head coaching job internationally.
That's why you don't see very many U.S. coaches coach pro overseas.
Right.
There's just too many college opportunities that make them more money.
Danny Busboom could be a very good international coach if she was willing to put the time in overseas to do that, but she's making a ton of money coaching the most prestigious program in the country. Why would you ever leave?
It's a very unique circumstance to the U.S.
Right. So you have all of these coaches who are great college coaches, but don't have any international experience.
And obviously, the games are very different.
Yeah, they're very different. It's a different skill set. And so it's a really interesting question if you're forced to stay with U.S. coaches.
You're not forced to stay.
But I'm saying
the question is, who's your dream coach?
Yeah.
I would say, and here's the thing, and we talked about this a few episodes ago, is that North Americans, generally speaking, are difficult to coach. Just based on the type of feedback that North American athletes are willing to accept.
Well, but I think that also stems from playing collegiately here, right? If you're a college athlete, you're a stud. Like if you're a good college athlete, you're catered to. You get NIL money now. You whatever you want. If you don't like it, you just get up and you leave and you go somewhere else.
I've written letters of recommendation for coaches that I have been obsessed with. Were they like aggressive? Did they challenge you? Did they beat around the bush? They never did. No, they're in your face. But I thought that they were outstanding coaches, and they just did not make it here because the athletes couldn't handle it.
Here being Canada, but you have
North America, yeah. So I would say like a Barbolini would be great. A coach of that. You know who else I think would be great? A Bernardino.
Yeah.
But like Bernardinho, you make a mistake, he stares you down and then rips his shirt off. Like, how many North Americans can handle that? Like, I played for the man for 2 years. Like, he's outstanding. I think that he would be a great coach for the program.
Yeah.
The way that he sees the game, his tactics, his drills. Like I said, Barbolini, but he's Italian. Like, these people, these great coaches have so much emotion and fire. They don't try to make you feel good. They just want to make you better. And it's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean,
so those two pop to my mind with that question.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Karch is the perfect U.S. coach.
Mm-hmm.
He can't coach both programs. He was very successful with the women. You know, not sure what the reasons are of why he switched to the men, but you know, he's your prototypical U.S. coach. And right now, I think there's a lack of international experience that they have to choose from if you're going to stay with American-born coaches. So, yeah.
So Adam refuses to answer that question.
I mean, I think obviously, I think your choice. I think Guidetti, Barbolini, Bernardinho, Karch, like all of those would be great for the program. So we are heading into week 3 of the women's VNL after our break week, and those matches are being played in Apeldoorn, Netherlands, Arlington, Texas, and Chiba, Japan. Every match that's being played in Arlington, Texas has meaning. That's the pool we talked about where the playoffs are on the line. So
if you want to see some teams fall apart, who's going to rise to the occasion? Arlington is where it's at.
Any match being played in Arlington is worth watching.
But not the best matches available.
If you're looking for something other than playoff hopeful teams, July 11th at 6:20 a.m. Eastern, we have Poland versus Brazil. That'll be a great game. July 12th at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern, Turkey versus Italy. And then July 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern, USA versus China. So those will be the matches if you're looking for great volleyball to pay attention to. If you're looking for the pucker matches or the make it to playoff matches, anything in Arlington will do.
That concludes this week's episode of Volley Talk. There's always something shaking in the volleyball world, and we hope you enjoyed this little fix. Be sure to follow the show so you don't miss any updates, and we'd be so grateful if you'd leave us a 5-star review. You can also find us on Instagram at volleytalk_podcast. If you have a topic that you'd like us to discuss, be sure to let us know by reaching out to us on Instagram or at info@sarahpavin.com. Thanks so much for joining us. We're taking a break next week, so we'll join you the week after.